I'm Joe Betts-LaCroix, and I want to share with you my experiments with a 28-hour day. Not slowing down the earth. But, so my sleep is all over the place. I actually tend to wake up around the same time because of life, but I generally go to sleep basically as long as I can procrastinate staying awake, I can, and that causes a lot of variability, and unfortunately it also causes, for me, lost sleep, which, as we know, is bad. But I love staying up every night as late as I possibly can. Then I saw this XKCD comic which pointed out that 6 28-hour days coincidentally fit exactly in the same week that 7 24-hour days do. And if you follow this, you get to go to sleep 4 hours later every night. This made me very happy. So I thought I would like to try it, and I was wondering, would it really work? So I looked at some sleep research showing the circadian period length for a couple hundred people, and there's a nice distribution there. And most people are a bit longer in their natural period than 24 hours, and men even a little longer. And so I was wondering where I might fit into that. So I, zooming out a little bit from that and fitting a normal distribution to it, because it's a very nice distribution, and extrapolating forward to 28 hours, I realized it would be 19 standard deviations away from the mean, which means about one chance in the number of atoms in the entire universe that I would actually have that natural rhythm. So I decided to try the experiment. How did I do it? I got a Zeo sleep coach to help me with my schedule, which this is for helping other people know when I'm asleep and helping me remember when I should go to bed, and various budgets for time that I should spend throughout the week. And the Zeo, as I mentioned before, has a headband that measures EEG signals and can tell you whether you're deep sleep, light sleep, etc. And then the Withings blood pressure cuff, because Professor Sapolsky from a few buildings over told me that blood pressure is a good proxy for cortisol, which blood pressure is a lot easier to measure, and that's a proxy for stress, and the main concern I have about mucking with my sleep would be that I experience stress and then more badness. So where to do this? This is the main floor of my house, and where can I be asleep when everybody else is awake? And basically there was no place to do it. So I looked in the lower floor at the finished spaces, and unfortunately also pretty much no space. But there's this huge crawl space down there, I noticed, and nobody's using it. And in fact, there's one place in particular that was reasonably flat, and I could access it through a hatch next to the furnace. And there's some headroom in there. It looks something like this. Not quite as flat as I would have liked, but nonetheless, that's what I had. So I rolled out this tarp, pitched a tent, dragged a mattress in there, and that's where I spent the next couple of weeks sleeping. It's dark down there too, which is nice. So how did it turn out? So this is the Zeo traces, and you can see my sort of sleep that's all over the place, and then the start of the experiment period where the blue line is. Nice clock-like 4 hours later each night. The vertical lines are 4 hours later. It was about the most regular my sleeps have been for a long time. You can see circled in yellow there is the orange, which shows awake times from the Zeo. A couple of times I tended to wake up in the middle of the night right when the sleep from last time would have finished. Here's the second week, ending at the blue line, and then maybe a momentum effect there. And again, I tended to wake up in the middle of the night at the same time as the previous day I would have woken up from my entire sleep. So that was annoying. Some reasons that I may have woken up is here I was in this location underneath the house, just underneath the floorboards, and at the next floor up from my house, there was a particular kind of distraction that I would recommend avoiding if you were to try to repeat this experiment. So I summed up, I listed all of the different sleeps, and the height is how long the sleep was, and you can see that my sort of normal crappy 7 hours of sleep a night average is pretty much observed during the experiment period as well, except sort of degenerating throughout over the course of the 2 weeks. But blood pressure did not significantly vary from the mean before and after, so I probably wasn't at least completely destroying my body. Who knows what other kinds of things I was doing, but in order to have fun, why not? Okay, so in summary, it was challenging, especially in coordinating with my friends and family. Where's Joe? Oh, he's asleep under the house. It was worthwhile. It needs some tweaking, especially for those wake-ups, and I think it's worth trying again. It's not going to happen in the near future for me because I'm super locked onto the 24-hour day sort of normal world for a while, unfortunately. But if one of you would like to try it, I would be happy to support that. First of all, I'd recommend creating a simpler schedule. I think something like this would help other people have a better idea in their head of when they should try to bug you and not. Also, you might want to try hacking your melatonin curve. This is a normal melatonin curve, which the melatonin starts up at the DLMO, which is the dim light melatonin onset moment, and then it goes up until sleep time and then courses off. The Canadian military has done some hacks on this, one of which is giving oral melatonin in the middle of the sleep, which does indeed delay the melatonin and extend the day-night cycle. But that seemed somehow inconvenient to me, and not sure you'd want to try to set an alarm, wake up in the middle of the night in order to have more sleep. Maybe I didn't. The other way that they were hacking melatonin was to impose artificial light onto the sleeper during a certain period of the night. And I liked this idea because you could automate it, and you wouldn't necessarily have to wake up for it. And it did indeed, you see the dotted line is the new melatonin curve. It did delay the circadian period, increase the circadian period, and delay the phase of the sleep. So if you do that, you should be careful. This is a curve showing the yellow one. If it's high, then you're actually advancing or shortening your day, and if it's low, you're lengthening your day. And the white box is a normal nighttime period. So you see, if you do it at the wrong time, you could actually get the wrong effect. So you should read this paper before you start mucking around with your brain. But if you do muck around with your brain, because it's a fun thing to do, let me know, because I would love to hear the results of it. You can get me at Betts-LaCroix on Twitter, etc. And I would be super excited if somebody else was willing to destroy themselves as well. Thank you. So, any questions?
So I find this endlessly fascinating. This is the second time I've heard this in the last 14 days or so. I find it fascinating because most of the times when people want to talk about self-tracking, they want to talk about doing the awesome things that led them to losing weight or getting fitness or being in control of their blood glucose. All of these things where I did this and I succeeded. What you're saying is, I did this and it sucked and I failed. Why do you want to do it again?
Well, it did satisfy one of my cravings, which is being able to go to sleep when I actually feel like going to sleep. And after 24 hours, I'm still going. In fact, that's when my productivity kind of hits its peak. And if the rest of the world just go away for a little while and leave me alone, I love the rest of the world, by the way, no offense, then I just get so much fun stuff done during that period. So for me, it wasn't torture and it wasn't a failure because I really enjoyed the experiment. I'd like to do it again sometime when I get a little bit more freedom from constraints.
Gotcha. So why do you think you enjoyed do you enjoy this experiment or experimenting in general?
Well, I like novelty. I have a novelty bias, I think. Yeah. But I like experiments too, yeah.
Great. So let's have some questions. I know we have some people that actually do some research on sleep in the crowd, so please, let's ask Joe some things about what he was doing. Anne.
So I was curious, so there are other sets of hacks for trying to regularize the melatonin cycle, things like blue light first thing in the morning and vitamin D first thing in the morning, things like that various people have played with. Have you ever thought about trying to do sort of the inverse experiment of seeing whether or not you can tweak yourself to be happy with 24 hours?
Yeah, well, that's sort of the compromise I'm in right now. And this was a very poorly done experiment, by the way. If someone else did it again, I would encourage them to try to control light, because it's one of the primary forcing factors for your whole circadian rhythm, and have bright light first thing in the morning and kind of dim it down, or wear those sort of dorky orange glasses later in the day. Well, your 28-hour day, not the rest of the world's day. So I think that you would want to control other variables too, like temperature that you're exposed to, and all these things make it more and more inconvenient to actually just sort of try this as a person, but it makes the science which is debatable if you want to call it science, N of 1, but it would make it more valid and probably repeatable. Did I answer your question? Close enough? Okay, sorry.
In the back.
Yeah. Any changes in your mood while you were doing this?
Well, I didn't track mood, so all I have is my memories, which we know are valid. So I remember really enjoying it. I think I was actually pretty happy. My wife was super, what can I say, unsure about whether this would be a good idea. But bless her heart, she was also amazingly supportive of saying, okay, we'll make space, we'll rearrange the schedules, and set up kid time with you at weird times. It's also odd to be sleeping in the middle of the day on the weekend. Yeah.
Esther.
So I just want to put in a shameless plug for something called Valky, which is a Finnish shines light in your ear.
Oh, yeah.
And it's much more convenient than looking for sunlight. I use it myself for jet lag. I gave it to my mother with extreme positive but surprising effects that maybe I should turn into an Ignite talk.
Yeah, nice. The pineal gland is apparently, like the brain is apparently reasonably transparent to certain spectra of light. In fact, I heard that if you could crawl inside somebody's peritoneal cavity or in their guts, and they were to take off any dark clothing and walk into the sunlight, that you could read a newspaper in there. Like there's a fair amount of light permeating through our body, and in fact there are melanopsin receptors on different organs all over the place in there, which are possibly responding to cues which are totally lost now because we're wearing black and we're staying inside all the time. But I really want to try that. But we're shining light in my ears.
I feel like we could talk all day long about reading the newspaper inside your cat, but we have other questions.
Hi, Dr. Klee Kushida from the Sanford Sleep Medicine Center. Yeah, there's definitely, bright light can really help, but, we do have behavioral programs that can actually help resync your circadian rhythms. And what it looks like is you're having this condition called a free running type of a circadian rhythm. But there's definitely, types of behavioral interventions as well as medications that any sleep specialist should be able to help you with.
Yeah, well, if I force myself to go to bed on time, and that's kind of an emotional, letting go of things that I obsess on. If I actually force myself to go to bed on time, and I open the blinds in the morning at a reasonable time, and that kind of thing, I end up operating pretty much okay. It's mostly kind of a passion thing, like, I just don't want to stop working on this project because it's so cool and I want to finish it. And so for me, it goes in and out around how much do I care about being a complete zombie the next day and completely destroying myself versus this particular project that I'm working on right now. And as I mature in that trade-off and I'm willing to have some delayed gratification, I get better at actually going to bed on time. But once I completely fail at that, yes, I will try your drugs. Thank you.
Any other questions for Joe here? So I'm expecting next year sometime we're going to have some talk about you putting a sensor inside so we can see and test the lights. Right?
Cool.
Maybe?
Sign me up.
All right.
I'll do it.
All right. Thanks again.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.